wanted to show it off real quick. All right, now we'll move into the HGC post-show. A lot of interesting questions this week. A lot of more in-depth questions. We're actually getting a lot of things. I just realized I don't have my water bottle. That's fine. My wife will be home soon. She can actually bring it to me. Yeah, and as always, we will start off with a summarization. One of the big things about the current rankings is that because of the way the tiebreaker rules are structured, and DB Smiley is going to do an article on this for the GFE website, so keep an eye on gfe.gg if you want an in-depth breakdown of what the possibilities are. But currently, as it stands, a lot of different teams could go to the clashes, or the Western Clash for NA and EU. So something to bear in mind that the match record currently is volatile, to say the least. That said, the series that I would recommend people watch from each region, and there's going to be some oddballs. So from NA, the series I got the most questions about, and I think in some ways is the most interesting to watch because of that volatility, is actually No Tomorrow versus Even in Death. If you wanted to watch good teams play, you could watch Team Freedom versus Roll20 Esports, right there. That was a 3-2. This was a pretty good set of games. It shows a lot of the growing pains of Roll20. It shows a lot of the adaptability of Freedom. But the reason No Tomorrow versus Even in Death is an interesting set, and we're going to talk more about it later because there were a lot of questions asked about it in the thread. Browncoat, thank you for the Twitch sub. I appreciate it. The reason I think it's interesting is because it shows where the bottom of NA is in a lot of ways. And when you're talking about any region, the distance between the bottom and the top team is sort of the ceiling they have to improve with the current level of competition. It's very unlikely that a team can get significantly better in a region unless they're being pushed up by other people. You're only as good as the person you can beat is something that... Yeah, I have a sub button now. All the Twitch affiliates got it, actually. So it's not like a partner button. I'm an affiliate. Twitch affiliate, so I have a sub button. I don't know exactly what the difference is. But No Tomorrow versus Even Death is going to give you a very interesting perspective on where NA is now. And in many ways, NA is worse than it was. NA... before Crucible was actually better. There were more good players in the HGC than there are now. On average, and the level of NA went down a little bit. But seeing No Tomorrow and Even Death start to get a little bit better and bring that back up is encouraging. Moving on to Europe. And again, I don't know why Master League's in reverse order of matches. This never used to happen. But moving on to EU. The series that I recommend you watch if you did not already is actually Zealots versus Team Liquid. And again, for the same reason. Zealots is a new team. Team Liquid was top 3. Will Fan be sad that I'm switching myself from him to you? That's a question you gotta ask Fan. Zealots, came into the Crucible. Team Liquid was a top 3 team. It shows the difference. It shows where EU is right now, that a formerly top 3 team is now in the situation where they lost a set, at least, to a team that just came in and theoretically should be near the bottom, right? Because if all they do is beat one of the bottom 2 teams to get in, and the bottom 2 teams, lost pretty close matches to the 5-6 teams in order to end up being in the 7-8 slots. They shouldn't be able to beat a top 3 team, and they did. It shows you the difference. It shows you the level of improvement that EU has. And this is one of the things you'll notice about EU teams in general. EU has a lot of depth as a region. It has a depth that NA does not. It has a lot of analytical players, and analysis is critical to improvement. So, and they have a higher ceiling. So this is a bottom EU team that improved massively over a very short period of time and ended up getting really, really high up. Compared to, in NA, we have a bottom NA team that got in because of the disband. They didn't even earn their spot, essentially. I mean, you can make an argument that they did earn their spot to a point, but they didn't actually manage to beat an HGC team to get in. They just got in because Beast had disbanded, right? And you can see the difference. If you compared Zealots to Motomaro, there'd be no question about which team has improved more. And theoretically, they started from roughly the same spot relative to their region. And it's just not the case, right? EU is dramatically deeper in terms of skill. We're going to bottom EU HGC team rank in HGC. I mean, we can speculate about that, but we actually know people have talked about scrim results when the NA teams went to mid-season brawl. So Roll20 played Playing Ducks several times, and apparently they lost like 18-2. And I'm talking about games, not like kills. So they played the mid-tier EU HGC teams. Tempo Storm did as well. Tempo Storm hasn't talked about the results as much, but the mid-tier EU teams are strictly better than the top NA teams. So a bottom EU HGC team would probably be top 4 in NA. That's just where we're at right now. It's a little bit different. Yeah, Roll20 was better than Tempo in scrims. And Roll20 definitely has better teamwork. Tempo... How do I put this? Tempo's not fast enough. One of the reasons that... And in hindsight, this is very clear, but obviously I don't... Like, Kala made this point. I wasn't sure if Kala was correct, but I went back and looked, and Kala was 100% correct. Tempo Storm's not fast enough when it comes to making decisions. They will make the right decision, but it'll take them like 4 seconds or 3 seconds or 5 seconds in some cases. They'll make the right initiation, they'll make the right call, but it'll be a little bit slow. And in that situation, you can't be slow. It's not enough to make the right call. You have to make the right call instantaneously. And by moving their brain essentially onto the tank position, they cut that lag time a little bit. And now they're relearning they're learning how to play with that structure. And it's still not fast enough. Shot calling needs to be instantaneous. And having a team of people who are all really thoughtful about the game is really good in some ways. And if you go back and look at some of the interviews for when Tempo Storm first got organized as a roster, they were all about picking people who communicated well, really thought about the game very, very critically. Older players in many cases, mature players. They wanted a roster that would work together and not just be a superstar roster. They didn't want anyone to be the best player. They just wanted a team that worked together really well. And they got that. And because this is such a team-coordinated game, they did extremely well. But now they're going up against people who have... And when they went to EU, they were going up against people who had really good team coordination, and they're just faster. They're playing at a pace that's like a few steps up. And if you aren't pushing yourself, and you don't push yourself, you're not going to be in a situation where you're used to that pace, and you can't just like speed up. You have to practice being that fast all the time. It's not something you can just do. One of the things that StarCraft players, this is a good example, one of the things that StarCraft players will always do is they'll always be trying to do their max APM, even if it's just pointless clicking. At the beginning of the game, when you don't actually need 400 APM, they'll still be trying to maintain that 400, because if their fingers literally get cold, and if they try and like spike their APM in the mid game to where it needs to be, and they have this like gradual increase, it doesn't work. They can't make their fingers move fast enough unless they're always moving their fingers that fast. Guitar players actually have the same problem. Guitar players will, when they're trying to play something really, really fast, will practice to failure, and then they'll keep doing that until they can practice, and then they'll move it up another notch. But if they try to play slow to fast, that's one of the most difficult things you can do when you're playing guitar, is actually play slow to fast and go back and forth between two different speeds. So you can't do that. You have to be playing at max pace all the time, and you should be doing it. You should be playing so fast that you're failing all the time, so that at least in your practice environments, and then you step it down to the place where this is the place we can play and make the decisions correctly. But you need to be able to play at that pace. Do you feel Tempo needs to make roster changes to compete internationally? I don't. I think that they need to practice faster. I think that their main problem is they're not playing fast enough. And you don't achieve that speed through anything but practice. You disagree on that style of practicing music? Stun Galler, thank you for the follow. I mean, I know professional guitarists who spend 8 hours a day practicing. That's how they practice. There are other ways of learning instruments. There's other ways of learning anything that aren't as intense, but they're not as efficient per hour of practice. And if you're a professional, obviously, you need to be as efficient per hour of practice as you can be. Intentional, really good practice and practicing to failure are just some of the basic fundamentals of learning how to do anything at a really high level. Korea. MB Black versus MBB Miracle. Easy. There's really no other series that was amazing. MBB Miracle versus L5 would probably come in second here. You notice that both went to 4 games. Both had one sort of surprise loss. Not so much surprise. I mean, these are teams that are relatively close. It's normal to drop 1 game in a set. Hey, Galia. Welcome to the stream. RR is actually doing surprisingly well. If you want to see an up-and-coming team, RR is learning to play the game. It's kind of funny. If you go back, like, watch their first thing, and then you come to here, you can see the dramatic improvement RR has made. They're actually probably not the bottom team Korea. Playing to failure is correct, but you need to learn to play. Yeah, that's true. You need to learn play at a slow pace. But Tempo Storm has learned to play at a slow pace. They got that. They can make the correct decision 100% of the time. But it's just like 5 seconds late. They just need a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. And China. China, again, is kind of weird because their format is just like not the same. It's not... Do I watch all the HGC games for every region? Yes. Yes, I do. Normally what happens is I will watch the EU and NA games live. I'll have them on one monitor while I'm doing work on the other one. This weekend was particularly rough for me. And then I will watch the VODs for Korea when I can. Usually I have to finish them on Monday, which is why this show is on Tuesdays. And I watch China pretty much the same way. Just watch the VODs when I have time throughout the weekend. My objective, ideally, is to be finished no later than Monday afternoon so that I can go look at the thread and look at the questions and be like, if anyone has any specific questions, I can go back and review matches. I give myself 2 hours of review of any matches to study specific points that were of interest to people. And then on Tuesday, if you want, like, if you have an in-depth question about a match, you need to ask it in the thread or you won't get the best possible answers. I won't have done that review, which is why the thread always goes out. That's why I still do the thread. But again, China has a really super perfect team. With the dissolution of Zero Panda, Super Perfect Team got some of the Zero Panda players who were really good. Challenge Everything is really good, and E-Star, despite having a new roster, is still like decent. So these are the top 3 teams. If those teams aren't playing against each other, there is no good game in Korea that week. Like of those 3 teams, one of them needs to play one of the other ones, or it just doesn't work. So that didn't happen this week, so again, I can't recommend any Chinese games. China, as a region, their top was decent, and then it just crumbled because of people switching to other games. So China has been set back. I would say China's been set back at least a year in terms of their competitive scene. So I said it would take NA 18 months from this January to catch up to EU. After the current HGC swap, I added another 6 months to that because that's where they are. China was ahead of NA by about 9 months, and then they got set back by about a year, which means that at the top end, China may currently be better than NA, but only by like 4 or 5 months. China is, in theory, a major region, but their formatting is different because you can see they're only playing sets of 2. So their rule set is different, and it's a mess. Like, China is just a mess. China's always been a mess. It's never had good coordination with Blizzard. NetEase and Blizzard have just never managed to quite work together well. It's not on the same schedule. They don't have they're literally running a different format. Like, China's a mess. It's really, really hard to recommend watching China, which is a shame because Kendrick, Swish, and Tetcher are actually doing a really good job of casting it. It's just hard to recommend the region right now because it's such a mess, both in terms of the actual play and in terms of the problems between NetEase and Blizzard and viewership and all these other things that are going on. All right, delving into the thread. Fnatic versus Dignitas is first up. Game 1. I heard there's a mobile game in China copying LoL and HOTS that the region is switching to. Yes, there is a mobile game in China that is apparently being put out by... well, it's being funded by the parent company of Riot. Right? So it's essentially League is putting out a competitor through their parent company directly to HOTS. And the amount of money you can make being a professional player in the mobile game is higher, like a lot higher than it is in HOTS. So if you're a competitive mobile player and you only care about money, it makes sense to switch. Bear in mind that some of the top Chinese teams right now, their coach mortgaged their house in order to keep the team going. That was pre-HGC. HGC money coming in obviously up a little bit, but you basically can't live off of playing Heroes of the Storm in China, even as a top team. So, yeah, E-Star switching to a game where they're actually going to make money makes a lot of sense because they need cents and dollars and won and all that other good things. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal that this game is offering like literally quintuple the, and it's not just the prize pools that are better. It's not just the financing that's better. It's that they get more viewers when they stream it. So they'll literally get 5 to 10 times as many viewers, and every extra viewer, is more potential donations, more potential ad revenue. It's just the way it is. So, which is a shame that E-Star was fun to watch. Yeah, E-Star was a great team, and they have a lot of really good players. Xingxi, easily one of the best players in the world, and he'll make more money doing another game. So it just doesn't make sense. I don't know the name of the game. It has like warriors or heroes in the name. There's a Reddit thread about it. If you dig back through around Midseason Brawl, people were talking about how E-Star was going to retire after Midseason Brawl, and someone posted the name in the game. The name of the game. I don't remember what it is. Strike of Kings. It has kings in it. It's Strike of Kings or something like that. Yeah. Strike of Kings. There you go. Zero Max has it. So you can look it up. I've never played it. And of course, it does have different names across different regions, to my understanding. Yeah, Browncoat says it's either Strike of Kings in China or King of Glory in the US or vice versa. There you go. That's the game. You guys are more than welcome to check it out. I have not yet. I actually might check it out since apparently it's similar. Well, maybe we'll become a Strike of Kings stream. Maybe it'll work. If it works in China, maybe it'll work in NA. I'm kidding, guys. It's never gonna happen. So the question for this game is: Fnatic played this game in a slow, map control, constriction-oriented style. Dignitas got slowly squeezed to death over 22 minutes. Do you think there's anything Dignitas could have done to break the Fnatic stranglehold? Why do you think Dignitas could break it? How do you try to deal with the Fnatic style? So on Tomb of the Spider Queen, whoever has better wave clear should win unless you can secure kills. Arthas and Greymane are the two best wave clearers for Dignitas. You can make an argument for Uther at level 4 having a halfway decent wave clear. Whereas Fnatic, literally everyone on their team could in theory have wave clear, although Tracer has to wait till 13. But in the early game, they have 2 good wave clear heroes, and at 7, they graduate to having 4. So the only way you win on Tomb of the Spider Queen, if you have worse wave clear, is if you have better team fight, and you can constantly get people picked off. Like, constantly. The problem is, in order to get picks, you need to be able to jump on people. In order to jump on people, you often need at least an element of surprise, whether it's a fraction of a second or a full second or whatever. But Fnatic has Tassadar. So Fnatic would literally... This is a situation where the game was literally won in the draft, in my mind. Fnatic just had a better comp for the map, and Team Dignitas had zero answers to that comp. So all they have to do is play patiently, and they eventually win, because their wave clear is better. All they have to... Like, literally all Fnatic has to do is not make a mistake. It's up to Dignitas to make active plays and make something happen. And they tried. I wanted to say that they should have been more aggressive, but the reality is Dignitas was about as aggressive as they could be safely. And when they did push in, yeah, water.
Yeah.
Thank you. When they did push in, they ended up losing the fights and losing people, and they only got out in many cases because of really good portals. Shout out to Mene, by the way, really good portals this game. That's the way it works. That's the way Tomb has always worked. You either have better wave clear or you need to kill people. If you have better wave clear and you don't make mistakes, the other team can't and doesn't kill you, you just win eventually by attrition. And Tomb of the Spider Queen is an EU special. EU has a lot of experience playing that map. I feel like Team Dignitas thought they had enough wave clear that they would be fine, and that just was not the case. So that's a drafting error. I understand why they picked up the Medivh, because they wanted a response. They wanted something to buffer the Uther healing, and they wanted a better response to Pulse Bomb, but it just wasn't enough. These are all from Sirkai TSW, by the way, these questions. And he also had a question about Game 2. Same match. Ah! That's not what I meant to do. Random scrolling. Dignitas versus Fnatic. Here we go. Game 2. Dignitas picked Quackness's babies. Yes, they did. Greyman and Falstad away. Oof. And Fnatic last picked Lunara for him. Do you think Lunara is something we use as servable? Well, I can't be on Greyman here, or are there more specific conditions, reasons for drafting? Thank you. Drafting him in this game. I would actually say I can't be on Greyman on pick Lunara is inaccurate. I can't be on Vala, so on pick Lunara is a little bit closer to the reality. Lunara is a good battery for Uriel, and so you'll often see Lunara actually subbed in for Vala when Vala either doesn't fit the draft or has been picked or banned, or there's too many counters to a Vala-centric comp. Because Lunara has better poke than Vala does. Vala has a lot more burst. She also has, Rain of Vengeance for the stun. Stuff like that. So Dignitas definitely targeted Quacknix in many ways, but it's not like Quacknix doesn't have a deep hero pool. He just has heroes that he's particularly known for. So Lunara pick here it's probably the best pick against Uther. It's a pick that's really good in extended long fights, which is something that will happen on Infernal Shrines, right? And it gives them, in many ways, an answer to the damage over time of Mathael, because if one team has damage over time and one team doesn't, then it comes down to sustain versus sustain and picking the right, who makes the mistake first, so you can dive and get a pick. But if both teams have damage over time, then you can just slowly grind it out, and you have a bigger window to take advantage of mistakes or make plays, depending on what's going on in the game. It's kind of funny that making mistakes from one team and plays from the other are kind of the two sides of the same coin. It should be unusual if drafts are even, that a team can make a play without the other team having a response. But it happens all the time, and usually you can link it to a positional mistake or a cooldown usage mistake, something like that. Yeah. So Lunara was not, I can't be Greymane. It was, they needed some damage over time. They needed something to deal with Uther in particular, because... And Uther's not as bad against Lunara as he was. It used to be that if you draft Lunara into Uther, you basically auto-won the game. But it is still definitely a problem. I'm curious how you'd characterize the overall series between No Tomorrow and Even in Death. Did No Tomorrow just not show up? Did Even in Death click in some entirely new way? So, yeah. So this is what I was talking about. We would talk about this later. A lot of people thought this was like, literally, quote, unbelievable upset. Unbelievable upset. No Tomorrow losing 3-1 Even in Death. I think this is the first set that Even in Death has won, and it may even be Is this actually... So this 3-1 win of Even in Death is literally only the third, like the first game they took was literally the third game they'd won in HGC. Third game they'd won out of 5 sets. That is not a high number. Levon did? Thank you for the follow. Or not follow, host. I know words. So to say this was an upset is pretty much a pretty dramatic understatement. But the way this series worked is No Tomorrow had really good, or excuse me, Even in Death had really good team play and really good drafts. And I think it might actually be like literally the first time, and I'm including the open games, where we've seen them play together as a team. And I want to focus on their loss. So they ended up losing Warhead Junction here. There's a moment where they lose. Let me get set up for this so I can actually read chat while I'm doing it. So, Abathur comps. Generally speaking, if you're up against an Abathur comp, the thing you do is try and get pressure early. As far as possible, you just want to get as much pressure possible early. You want to tempo out a lead. Some HGC players said EID was beating NT in scrims. Wouldn't surprise me. They beat them in the thing. But Heroes is just such a team-coordinated game. I know I said a lot. It's such a team-coordinated game. And making the correct call strategically as a team and then following it up is really, really important. So No Tomorrow is like, we don't want to fight at level 1. We're going to stay split. I was even a thread about this on Reddit today. Why do people go mid at the start of games? Well, people go mid at the start of games because it gives you an advantage. You see the mines coming down instantly. And they're not going mid. They start mid because it's actually the fastest way to get bottom, and they're going to do this lane. They have a Nubarak, who has Beetles for the push. They have Cassia, who does a significant amount of push, not as much as she used to with the nerf to Shard Strike. She's not as scary pushing in because it's easier to defend against her, but she's still scary. And they're just pushing in. Notice that Dahaka is down here, and he burrows top, so he contributes a little bit of damage, doesn't miss that soak. They have the first tower, and this tri-lane is a decently strong siege tri-lane. They don't have anything that disables buildings, so they just have an incredible amount of damage. Brightwing is actually an acceptable solo laner. Certainly, if she's safe behind the gates, you can do a lot. And they're just trying to pressure out the team early, the Abathur. And they actually end up getting... They get all the way to the keep. And they get forced back. No Tomorrow makes a really aggressive boss call here, so it gives them something to deal with. If this boss call had not been made, there's no reason Even in Death should have been able to get this fort. Should have been able to get that keep early, actually. And this is what I'm talking about. They had a strategy. They executed the strategy. They didn't... No Tomorrow tried to counterplay them by grabbing boss and putting pressure on them. And Even Death was like, no. We're going to do what we set out to do. And the moment it becomes risky or too expensive, that's when they back off. They don't back off before that. They don't get scared. They back off only when it matters. And by committing to getting at least the keep wall, the way they did, even though it cost them their keep wall, they put themselves in a position to get nukes. Right? They made proactive plays every single step of the way. They ended up going for an aggressive boss call here because they saw the Arthas top. They have a boss control heroic in the form of Emerald Wind, and No Tomorrow does not. So this was something that was obviously considered in the draft. They're nuking it just for the defense here. Emerald Wind does eventually get used here. They didn't even use Emerald Wind to control the boss, but the point is that if they had needed to use Emerald Wind to control the boss, they could have. Right? So they're ahead in structures here. Once this keep goes down, they're in a situation where all they have to do is have enough nukes. If they have enough nukes, they can go core pretty much anytime they want to. And they don't even necessarily have to make it obvious because they can show Brightwing and Ahaka in the other lanes, and they can come in. They let No Tomorrow force this fight instead of just backing off. Like, they need this boss to get keep. That's all they needed to do. And instead, they let No Tomorrow actually force a fight on them and get a pick. Which team picked the map? This was Even in Death's map pick because No Tomorrow opted for first pick. So if you go watch every game in this series, they all have the same theme, in my mind, which is that Even in Death had a clear strategy at the beginning of every single game. They executed that strategy. They continued to execute that strategy throughout the entire game, regardless of what No Tomorrow did. And other than a few mistakes here and there where they got into No Tomorrow's pace, they did what they meant to do with the comp that they drafted. So they drafted a comp that had a clear strategy, they executed the strategy, and they played together as a team. And that's the biggest difference. They did something that is essential to playing Heroes of the Storm at a high level for the first time ever, and it went well for them. It's really good that they've embraced that and are practicing together as a team. I would be curious to know if their shot caller changed, or if they had some sort of leadership change or some sort of conference where they sat down and like, okay, we just need to have one idea of what's going on, and we need to do that idea. Because if you go watch some of their games from earlier in HGC, it really does look like they have more than one idea of what should be going on. Were you surprised, Even in Death 1? Yes. Not knowing scrim results, and obviously, I mean, I saw them play the week before. Meh. I saw them play this week. Totally different team. Like, totally different team. And it's not that they improved mechanically. That's not what happened. They improved strategically. Their communication clearly improved. Their decision-making clearly improved. And it would be unusual for that to happen. So it's possible that one guy was shot calling and was making the right decisions, and everyone was like, people will do this. People will do this, and it is the most frustrating thing in the world as a shot caller to do this. Stun him. Oh, yeah, stunning him's a good idea. I should do that. And then they stun him. No. Rotate. Rotate and clear the wave and then go get the camp. Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to rotate and then clear the wave. It's not, like, instant. Heroes of the Storm is such a fast-paced game that when a shot caller makes a call, you don't think about if you agree with it or not. You just do it. The time to think about if you agreed with it or not is after the game, when you're doing post-game analysis. And in a series, you do post-series analysis, right? You don't actually stop in between each game to do analysis. You don't do that. So my hypothesis is Even in Death sat down together as a team and either changed their shot caller because the shot calling improved, or the shot calling was always good, and they sat down and was like, can we just fucking do the call? Can we just not even thinking about it? Can we just always do the call, regardless of whether or not we agree with that? Can we try that for like a week and see what happens? And they won 3-1. So you need to have a lot of trust for the man in charge, and that sounds really tough. Yes! It is very difficult. Teams that do not follow this approach, Team Liquid, for instance, for a long time did not have a central shot caller. They were a mid-tier team for like a year and a half, and eventually they got to the point where they trusted each other so much that anyone who made a call, like the first person to make a call, they would do that call. And then as the situation changed over time, new calls would be made, and it wasn't necessarily the same person. But that's a strategy and a style that you need to be really familiar with everyone's play style, and it takes a long time to develop that level of trust and communication for a whole team. In this case, you're just trusting one guy, and it's actually easier than the alternative, which is much harder. But that's just how shot calling works. The ideal situation, if you have a lot of really thoughtful players, is that everyone's talking and communicating constantly, and most people can't track like 4 different voices coming in and giving them information like that. The basic shot caller setup is there's one person making every decision, everyone responds instantly, and they only say things informationally. Like, Dahaka is top. They're not like, we should gank Dahaka top. That's not what they say. They say, Dahaka is top. Dahaka burrowed top. Dahaka used adaptation. Right? They call out information so that the shot caller can make better decisions, because he, visually might not have noticed all these things. But they don't, it's never, we should do this. It's always, this happened. And then you wait. And then when you hear the thing that should happen, the shot caller's called, then you do that. You just don't even think about it, you just do it instantly. If you listen to Glauron shot call, if you go back and listen to the scrims that they streamed with, I can't even remember his name, the League of Legends player who was doing Try Hard for Good. Dyrus? Dyrus. Glaurung will make calls like 5 or 6 seconds in advance. And that helps his team prepare. And like he'll make a call like, I'm gonna VP, go on me. I'm gonna go VP, go on me, and then like 4 seconds later the VP will come. Right? He has a feeling, he has a sense that there's going to be a good group happening for the enemy team. They're gonna group up more than they should, or portal in 2. Portal in 2. As soon as the portal goes down, we go. Portal comes down, everyone goes. Or he'll say, zoning portal, no one go, and he'll put down the portal and no one goes. But by thinking far enough in advance to give them that like multiple seconds of warning, he's allowing them to adjust. And strategically, your shot calling needs to be at least to the next objective, preferably the objective after that. So one of the things EU teams will do, for instance, on Infernal Shrines consistently, is manage their wave clear and their camp timings in such a way that it's good for the first... manage their wave clear in such a way that it really enhances the first objective. So they will clear mid wave in their 4-man, and they'll clear bottom wave, and then they'll make a decision. If they have significantly better pick potential, they'll try and interrupt the enemy team's rotation. And if they have significantly better wave clear, they'll actually sometimes do a 3-1 split. And when they do it varies. So it'll either be on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th minion wave. But the reason they do it that way is because it forces the enemy team to make a choice. If they leave someone, they back up, looks like they're rotating, but they actually rotate around and they don't show, and they clear the wave. Puts the enemy in a position, if the shrine spawns top, they have to rotate someone bottom, clear the wave, and then come top. And then they're going to be... they're going to be 5v4 for about 15 seconds, if you do that correctly. And that gives you 10 to 13 skeletal defenders basically for free. One of the reasons that Bakery really likes Infernal Shrines is he has the timings down such, and he has a good feel for how levels are, that he can actually turn a single level lead, like 7 to 8, into a talent tier lead by timing out the objective in such a way that they delay at 39 of 40 to plan for the next objective. So they'll have a talent tier lead at the next objective. They've already won this one. They know they can cap it anytime they want to. They wait till they cap it. They wait for the cap until they know that the next objective will give them like 13 to 12 or 10 to 9 or something like that. They time that out. Strategic shot calling should be about 2 objectives in advance. Tactical shot calling needs to be basically instantaneous with ideally like a 2-second window of warning. Teams that have really shot callers with really good game sense and can shot call a little bit before, so everyone's on the same page and prepares, are a little bit better than teams that can't do that. And anytime there's a shakeup in shot calling, you'll notice teams slow down a little bit, and they can literally be the death of them. Every single game of Dig and Toss. Go watch a game where, like a mid-season brawl, where Dig and Toss had JPL as a shot caller, and then watch any game where Bakery is a shot caller, which has been every game since then, and just look at the difference in the speed. And all of that is just the speed of thought, right? It's not having that window of foresight and communication. Shot calling is hard. is another way to put this. Shot calling is hard. Superstars versus Niantic, Game 4. Total clown fiestas. So the question about this game was, I still cannot believe Niantic allowed Superstars to have a comeback 4-32 in order to win the series after dominating them all game, especially when it seemed like Superstars had a draft problem with lack of damage. I wouldn't say this is a really common thing for people to think, to the point where when NA very first went to Korea, this is something fans said, the Koreans would draft comps that seemed like they didn't have damage, and then they would get kill after kill after kill. And Fan was like, oh, I get it. They're all clicking their buttons on the same person at the same time, therefore they have enough damage. There's no such thing as a comp that doesn't have enough damage if people click their buttons on the same target at the same time. It doesn't exist. You could draft any 5 random heroes in Heroes of the Storm, for the most part, and be able to kill someone who's out of position as long as everyone clicked their buttons at the same time. We've seen Quad Warrior once or twice in competitive. It was fine because they had enough damage. So it was not the question. We've seen Triple Warrior used to be an entire meta, and you had one backline damage dealer. So, any insight on why they changed from J to Bakery as a shot caller? Every change Dignitas has ever made is to be the best in the world. So, they always ask themselves, have we hit a ceiling? Is this the best we can possibly do? Or do we need to change something? And frequently the answer is, this is the best we can do with the way things are now. We have to change something if we want to get better. And that means that it's going to suck for a while, but in the end, our ceiling will go up. Our ceiling will be higher, and we can reach that. I don't know if this was actually helpful to have the shot caller swap and the main drafter swap. I don't know if that was actually helpful for them or not, but that's always what Dignitas's reasoning is for any change they make. Yeah, Bakery is now the primary drafter. JPL used to draft for the team. So this game was ridiculous. There's no other way to put it. I have an entire guide on GFE. It doesn't include Diva yet, but basically, Malif is an all-game hero and always kind of has been. Anubrax's a really strong hero the entire game along. Dahaka has a weak mid-game. Right, so he's strong in the early game as a lane bully, and then kind of dropped off in team fights, but that was before his speed change. I would probably say Dahaka's pretty consistent across the entire game now. Maybe even slightly weaker early game in exchange for being slightly stronger, so he's more of a standard late game hero. Naventic has one engage mechanic. This is their primary problem. They have one engage mechanic, and it's Blessed Shield. And they're not really doing much. Notice that they're not really doing much pre-10. They have better movement on the map, which is why they're getting more shots, kind of, just by a little bit. It's really just like one altar. But they're not really doing much pre-10. They're not really doing much pre-10. They're going for some invades here. But because of the Abathur, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, they secure a couple of kills, and the kills they secure deny Superstars a pretty reasonable amount of soak. And the result, they get to 10 first, which, really shouldn't happen against an Abathur comp. Any team that's really playing well should be able to win the race to 10 against an Abathur comp. That's just one of the ways it is. So Naventic is doing really well in that sense. But then post-10, they just start pressuring. They take advantage of the fact that they have a lead. They get towers. They get experience off the towers. Whenever Blessed Shield is up, they look for damage. They look for a pick. They don't always get it. You can see it's on cooldown there, and there's no addition. No, I lied. They did get it. That was in fact a kill. I was thinking of a different time when they didn't get it. But yeah, so the primary problem with Johanna as a tank is her only initiation is Blessed Shield, which means you can kill someone every 60 seconds. But as long as you're killing someone every 60 seconds, you're totally fine. And they have the damage to do it. So what Superstars starts doing is Superstars basically remembers how to play against Johanna. They're like, oh, Blessed Shield's down. All we have to do is bait Blessed Shield, and we'll be in good shape. We just need to have an even tier talent fight. And here is where things go nearly badly. So boss ends here for Naventic. Naventic is checking it. Irho manages to just sort of walk away. Zuna immediately starts the boss. 16 is not yet picked up. And the rotation has started. He checks the bush. The mine sees him, so they know he's there. Hosty knocks everyone away. It's worth noting that Twilight Dream and Explosion are really good zoning tools. So Naventic has no zoning tools. So it was obvious they were doing this boss. They literally started it, right as Irho walked off, so that you can kind of see it. And they don't have any sort of zonal control, so they're just looking for the reset here, if they can get it. They go in, they get the Ancestral misses. That Ancestral missing is probably the most significant thing in the entire match, actually, in many ways. If that Ancestral hadn't missed, I'm a little bit surprised he didn't have Deflect up. Generally speaking, when you go in like that as Genji, one of the reasons that Rhaegar pairs really well with Genji is you can use Deflect to buffer for Ancestral. So you get low, you hit deflect, Ancestral hits you, and the durations overlap in such a way that Ancestral's pretty much guaranteed to go off. Think someone knocked on your door, Kev? Nah, it's me. I like knocking on my desk. It helps me think. It's a tick. And they end up winning this fight. So Ancestral missed, Clone wasn't used. Ancestral missed and Clone wasn't used. If Ancestral had hit, if Zuna had been a little bit better, or the Ancestral had gone off a little bit earlier, if Clone had been used, I'm not sure why Clone wasn't called for, or what Big Impact was doing. Think someone knocked on your desk, Cav? That's better. Yeah, someone totally knocked on my desk. And now Niantic actually makes the responsible decision, which is, well, we're in a situation where we only need one altar, or one shot, or boss, and we're still ahead in experience, so why don't we just get 20? But Niantic spent their entire game killing people every 60 seconds with Blessed Shield. So even though this is the responsible call, in many ways, it's not what they were doing, right? They didn't build a macro team. Johanna is a wave clear tank, but they didn't really build a macro team. And they're going for a macro approach here. Granted, they're winning from sheer damage output here because they have 4 capped versus 2, which obviously, and they get the experience here. They should immediately go for a fight. They should immediately look for a fight here now that they have 20. So they see, because of the minion wave, they actually saw superstars rotating back over this way. And they're like, oh, we'll just go reclaim our tower. Bear in mind, Abathur could have gotten that by himself. Like, it would have taken an extra 30 seconds, but Abathur could have gotten that by himself. Okay, now they have 20 versus 20. So they made the quote-unquote responsible call of waiting till 20. Oh yeah, sorry about that, guys. There we go. So they made the quote-unquote responsible call of waiting till 20, but then didn't force the fight when they had 20 and the enemy team didn't. No one's channeling this. They literally need to have someone channeling. Like, this channel wins. No one's channeling. No one's channeling. They're like, let's win the team fight and then do it. I'm pretty sure Tomster actually had enough time to channel that. Like, for the record, pretty sure Tomster could have channeled that. So this feels like a situation where Niantic had a clear idea of what they wanted to do and then lost it. I don't know if there was fatigue, frustration, the shock caller got it. Maybe the team started arguing on comms. We just can't know. But they went from having a really clear idea of what they were doing and then just completely messed it up. And Superstars went from getting picked to not dying and playing around Johanna's cooldown. Oh, Blessed Shield. And do it again here later. Here, look at this. So it's raising front warding, ear hose on the top side, making sure no flanks happen. Nerubian armor gets triggered there, but it's going to be back up. And there's Blessed Shield. Okay, there's Blessed Shield. They're looking for the kill here. Malf with Lune's Grace, you would have been able to channel. I mean, that is a zoning problem. Malf should not be able to get in range, but maybe. But if you're channeling, that it puts pressure on Superstars, right? Superstars knows they're going to lose if the channel goes off, so they channel. If they see you not channeling, they're like, oh, well, we can just poke. They have Malf. They have better sustain. A poke war is not what Niantic wants to get into. So either way, not channeling there is a win for Superstars. And they don't get the kill on Stray here. Alright. They've burned 2 cooldowns, including their primary initiation. They burned their counter to Cocoon in the form of Disintegrate. And they didn't get a kill. The correct call here, they're not going to lose the game if all they do is back off. If all they do is back off, they'll have another opportunity when all their heroics are back up to win. Let's see what they actually do. So they start backing off. Seems good. It's exactly what they should be doing. They're not dealing with bottom. They're not macroing. They're staying mid. Saray initiates onto Zuna. Zuna's fine. He gets away. But he's now split from his team. So here, Zuna is split from his team, and Big Impact uses Clone. They shouldn't be fighting. Disintegrates back up to the old Cocoon, but Dragon Blade is not up, and Blessed Shield's not up. These are in many ways their two most critical team fight cooldowns that they have. And Zuna goes in to the bottom here, tries to get a 2v1 kill with the Clone. Nowhere near his support. Like, there's no way Zuna lives in that situation, and there's no way he gets a kill. Going in was a mistake. And I can tell you going in is a mistake just looking at the cooldowns. I don't need to see anything else. You could cut off the entire screen from here down, just ignore positioning, I'll be like, it's probably a mistake. If you're in like a 5v1 because someone overextends, yeah, sure, go in. But this is a 5v5. 5 heroics available to 3. Cocoon happens here. Tomster actually got cocooned here because he healed the Clone. If he hadn't gotten in range to heal the Clone and just backed off, he actually never would have died. So he ends up dying here because he healed the Clone. So that game was totally lost to late game decision making on Niventic's part. Niventic threw. Niventic basically threw the game. It's nothing Superstars did, although Superstars did improve in playing around the opponents they were up against, or the heroes they were up against, I should say, midway through the game. Because no one plays Johanna. Probably took them a while to warm up. It's totally fine. Maybe this has been discussed already, but what do you think has caused the upheaval this season? From a strategy and execution standpoint, ignoring roster swaps, getting a roster swaps, have the former top teams gotten worse or have those previously on bottom just improved a lot? Both. I feel like all these games have been much more competitive this season. I don't analyze things enough to know where the teams truly... Okay, so this actually applies to every region. Every region... Oh. I'm glad you found them informative. That's the idea. This season has been insane for a variety of reasons. You can't ignore roster swaps. In Korea, literally the best shot caller in the world, arguably, Noblesse, when he's on point. Any thoughts on Tomster's performance on support so far? Okay, so we'll do that first. Tomster's performance on support. Tomster's been doing okay on support. The best... I'm gonna cheat. I have an unpublished support guide to calm them out of the tank. It's actually done. I just haven't done... So, you know, in my my Art of the Tank guide, I have a general overview of what it means to be a support, and then I have the individual rankings of supports and what they're strong and weak at. I haven't finished that for every single support. It's only done for like 5 of them. But I have the overview of what a support is and what a support does finished. And I'll give you guys a sneak preview. Supports give sustain. In the way the math works in Heroes of the Storm, healing is basically more efficient than damage by a pretty decent margin. If you're looking at just like a cooldown effectiveness, a cooldown from support in terms of the amount of health it restores is often worth multiple cooldowns from damage dealers and the types of damage and the amount of damage it deals. If you're averaging it out across, you know, entire comps, including tanks and other not necessarily high damage heroes. So when it comes to laning and in teamfights, a support can trade cooldowns efficiently. And that applies over, you know, short bursts and over really long periods of time. So in laning, it obviously makes sense to be able to stay in lane for longer. You'll get more value. That's the first thing the support offers. So when you're playing a support, you ask yourself this question: how can I keep my team active on the map as much as possible? Tomster is okay at this. He's not great. He's okay. Over the short period, denying cooldowns is just like burst saves, right? Being in the right time, the right place, to use the right cooldown on the right person to just negate everything the enemy team is trying to do. You can do this proactively in enabling picks like on the Uther Divine Shields Greymane. Greymane goes and get kill. That's really obvious. You can do it reactively. A lot of damage goes down on a target. You ancestral them. They're safe. Good job. Makes you feel like a big damn hero, which is actually what the section is titled. So that's an enabling and a denial mindset. And the last thing is, what Dreadnought actually likes to call fixing teams' mistakes. It's healing someone when they make a mistake and they're out of position and you make the save. So enabling or saving is when you're making a proactive play, and fixing your team's mistake is when you're making a defensive play. And they are similar but not the same. And you actually have to understand when your team is likely to get engaged upon, and if you need to counter swing. If someone in your team is bad, you need to understand that. Like there's a whole series of evaluating not just the comp and the map and the enemy team's comp, but the individual players. And then the most complicated part of being a support is Tomster on support dumber than straight on flex. Yes. Not by much, but yes. The hard part about being a support is that all three of those things are going on all the time, and it's not a clear, fixed thing. If you're playing a tank, it's like, well, I always need to peel for my backliner versus this hero. So if I see this hero go in, I need to peel. It's really simple. If I don't peel for them, they die, we lose the fight. Right? Support's going to be like, that guy doesn't matter anymore because he already burned his cooldown. So I'm going to heal this guy instead. It's funny to me that the most important part of playing a support is literally triage. Because it's like it's right there in the name, right? Healers have to do triage. It's just the way it works in real life. If you end up using a cooldown on the wrong person at the wrong time, you can actually just like lose lanes. Use a cooldown on the wrong person at the wrong time, you can actually just lose a fight. Tomster is really bad at triage. He is average at everything and bad at doing all of them at the same time. He is not a leaf on the wind. Yeah. Tomster certainly has the decision-making and the mechanical skill to get to that point. The question of whether or not he wants to be, like, does he want to be playing support? Because so far, we have not seen a single person play a role well that they did not enjoy playing. Every time they swapped a role, they have to because their team, they're like, nah. Was that two Fireflies references in one explanation? It might have been more than that. I don't know. I just felt like doing it. I mean, I have a guy named Browncoat in chat. I don't know what you want from me. Triage is determining who's going to die regardless of help, going to die without help, going to live without help, etc. Yeah, that's another way, a good way of thinking it. There's actually lots of ways of thinking of support. Playing support is probably the most intellectually difficult role in Heroes of the Storm. It's a thinking man's role, put it that way. And you'll notice there's a strong correlation between the best supports in the world and just the thoughtfulness that they bring towards the game. June is a very thoughtful player. June's the best support in A. Seems pretty straightforward. Merryday was always a really, really thoughtful player. He loved the game, loved playing the game. Got really frustrated with the game because he only got to play two heroes for like a year and a half. But he was super, super thoughtful. And yeah, and Dread. Dread is a great example. Dread was a really good support. Radon, you can go ahead and link something. Hyde, another good example. Like, it's bakery, right? So it's not exactly a coincidence that the best supports players are all really, really, really thoughtful. Dunk Train, another good example. Like, think about the pro players who played support. All of them have moved into like coaching or analytical roles in their quote-unquote retirement. There's a reason for that. It's a necessary role. It's harder to do well. If the support player is the thinking man's role, what would you say is the tank? I would actually... So, I feel like good tanks really want to protect their team. more than anything. Like, they might want to be aggressive, but good tanks want to protect their team more than they want to do anything else, in many ways. So, I don't know what you would call that. Like a father figure? They're just trying to protect their family. Isn't there a... protective instincts? Isn't there a position in football that's all about protecting the quarterback, like the linebacker or something? I feel like whatever mentality it takes to be a good linebacker is the mentality it takes to be a good tank. Tanks are just supports that don't heal, is a phrase I've heard before. It's actually left tackle. There we go. Left tackle. That's what I was thinking of. The second highest paid role in football, right? I only knew that because it was in a movie. I don't actually play football, for the record. But I'm trying to make this relatable. Left tackle. All right. So, can we talk about soccer instead? It's kind of weird because I think the tank in soccer is the goalie. Everyone is constrained, except the goalie. He's allowed to use his hands. Everyone on a high level team in Heroes of the Storm is constrained by the fact that they can just get blown up and die, whereas the tank can be a little bit more aggressive. But the tank is in front in Heroes of the Storm, and the goalie's in the back in soccer. So it's like, I don't know what's going on. But you can make these rough analogies to other games. My general point is that the mindset it takes to be a really good tank has to focus around what your team needs from you, and you can think about thinking about the enemy team is purely a matter of thinking about their positioning. You don't think about who's on the enemy team in many ways, except for like mobility questions. You think about where they are. If that makes sense. The only role that is like straightforward and simple is you think about your own positioning, the positioning of your tank, and the positioning of the enemy team. So it's only seven things you have to think about, or 7 units you have to think about. It is damage dealers. Everything else is more complicated than that. So damage is like the easiest role to play, essentially, in Heroes of the Storm. Although I'm saying that in terms of intellectual like throughput. Some of the most mechanically difficult heroes are damage dealers. So there's a distinction there between game and strategic understanding and decision making and like situational awareness and just sheer mechanical skill. Yeah, Zagrug is a really amazing tank. You guys want to see a really good tank? Zagrug. Watch Zagrug. From he has this exact attitude. He's just always defending people. Are you doing an analysis of why this game was such good? It was a specific question. Why did they lose in the late game? I answered it. We'll actually click away from the video. And then we got into a random discussion about supports. I want to finish the Gift of Life. I'm going to finish the Gift of Life this weekend, guys. No matter what happens, I'm going to finish the Gift of Life this weekend. Alright. I always want to dive, and Heroes like a noob don't help. If you always want to dive in, play Butcher. If you get really good at Butcher one-tricking, you can actually do a lot of work. I'm excited for the Gift of Life. Me too. I wish I had finished it. Alright. So we have a general question from Andreas from the Reddit thread, which is why such a shakeup? Why have teams gotten better? Why have teams gotten worse? Why the variance in the power rankings? Is a tank more intellectual role than support? I would say support. You have to keep track of more things in many ways. Supports also usually have the most critical team fight cooldowns. So whether or not you should do team fighting is something the support like always knows. Like yes, we can team fight. No, we can't. Whereas tanks, it's more about I see an opportunity, and then they have to think about a tank should be always looking for opportunities, and they should always be aware if they can go. R&R TV, thank you for the host, appreciate it. So I would say tank is slightly less intellectual, but tank and support are the two hardest roles to play in Heroes of the Storm. You say good tank. Tanks also initiate for the teams. Not always. Like most of the time, your tank will also be your initiator. There are notable like Kerrigan Arthas has been used for a long time. Kerrigan initiates, Arthas follows up, and then peels for the Kerrigan. So they do this 1-2 punch, right? It's Arthas is here, Kerrigan's like boom combo. Arthas is like root follow up, and now I'm here, and you can't get away. But Kerrigan can back up, or not, depending on if you get the kill. Kerrigan can continue to pressure. Initiation is usually something the tank does, but a tank always needs to protect their team. Like, that's the mindset. If you sign up to be a tank in a draft, you're thinking about, how do I keep my team safe? That's the mindset you need. You have other jobs. And the question was, what's the most important mindset for a tank? Because we were talking about what's the most important mindset for a support. But tank and support are just like the most critical roles at a high level of play. So you need to have... Do you read a poem for each subscription? I have no sub goals yet. Do you guys want a poem sub goal? I could do like one poem every 5 or 10 subs, which I'd owe you guys 3 poems for 16 subs, which is what I have right now. If you want a poetry sub goal, let me know, and I will make that happen. But we're getting into this question. This question is really, really interesting. Why the shakeup? Why are teams going up and down in the rankings? Team Liquid, Dignitas is performing consistently. Ooh, replay reviews. That's actually not bad. Everyone who sub gets a free replay review? You guys think of that? I find tank is super frustrating in gold plat because the rest of your team doesn't let you choose the one to initiations. Can't save your team if they're constantly in front of you. Yeah, that's very, very frustrating. I want a replay review for sub. Alright. That sounds like a lot of work for every sub. I mean, currently I don't have that many subs. It's about a half an hour to do a replay review. You should get like one per resub. I could do it randomly. Like I could do it for 2 hour... What if I do it for like 3 hour blocks on Thursday? So every Thursday I do 6 replay reviews, and they're just randomly picked from subs. So you're not guaranteed to get one, but it's pretty likely. Maybe I'll do it for 2 hours to start out. All right. Thursdays. Thursdays we will do sub replay review. One guaranteed for new subs. That could still potentially be a lot of work. I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out. We'll definitely do something on Thursdays that involve subs replay reviews. Hey, Ange10. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. We're finally going to get into this question. How do I find out when my Amazon Prime is up? I think it's under... I'm not even going to answer that. It's under your settings somewhere. We could definitely do sub-games too. Let's do something. So the question is, why are teams higher or lower? Team Liquid, as an example, I'm just going to pick it. Team Liquid is a team that deals really well with established metas. When they understand what's going on in a meta and they understand how to draft, they excel. A lot of their drafts run on rails. Liquid just doesn't have a lot of flexibility. One of the reasons Splendor complained several months ago about chess boxing and how hard drafting was and how he wanted it to not be as impactful in the game, and now it's become more impactful, is I think Splendor actually foresaw a situation where the complexity of drafting was going to be too much for someone to study, and they were going to need to hire someone as a full-time analyst or full-time coach position that could study drafts and help them draft. Team Liquid, by the way, is looking for a coach still, I think, to actually be doing that. I think at this point, drafting is actually complicated enough, and being good at drafting is basically a full-time job, and you can't practice, go to scrims, and do drafting full time. It just doesn't work that way. So drafting has gotten really complicated. So teams that really need to succeed in their draft and have specific... Oh, they did finally pick up a coach. Okay. Good. I knew they were looking for one. But, yeah, in order to succeed in the draft, it's just very difficult. Some teams are much more flexible in what they can play, so it's not as important for them because they can play a broader roster of heroes and they have more strategies that they practiced a lot. You know, whenever Dignitas pulls out Stitch's KT, it's not because it is just a crutch for them. It's because they can play it, and whenever they see a situation play it, they just pull it out. It's really important that teams have diversity in what they can play because it makes the other team harder to draft against. If you're a limited team in terms of the heroes that you excel on, it's going to be easy to draft against you because you can ban and pick and construct the drafts in such a way that you're going to have problems. Teams, every team in HGC, at least all the top teams, are now starting to take drafting super seriously. They're doing a lot of advanced research. They're trying to do analysis. I know Fan gave a shout out. I don't remember her name, but Fan gave a shout out to an analyst that GFE has hired to study drafts of the enemy teams. They give a lot of so when GFE does drafting now, they have a lot of data on the enemy team about what they prefer to play, and they take that into account when they're doing their drafting. I really wish I could remember her name. Fan give her a shout out too. She was like right down to my tongue. I'm bad with names. I can remember like every comp ever, but I can't remember people's names. I don't know what's up with that. So that is a big factor. Drafting is incredibly important in Heroes of the Storm, and it's something that's becoming... Courtney! I think it's Courtney. I think you're right. It's just something that's becoming more and more and more important over time. Right? And so the teams that have always had a broad roster of heroes and have a lot of niche or gimmick strats are harder to draft around, and those teams have been doing better just due to the depth of the heroes they can play. And teams that have had relatively difficult or situations or narrow pools or awkward overlaps in their hero pools that have caused awkward role swaps some cases in some drafts have not been doing as well. That's one aspect. Is drafting more important than HOTS in other modes? Yes. To the point where in competitive Heroes of the Storm, really experienced players can look at a draft and be like, you lost. You can literally win or lose the game in the draft. The other team would have to mess up massively to lose. And losses in the draft happen more often at a high end of play than I'm really comfortable with. I think that teams... Because they should never happen. And the problem is that... Doesn't Team Freedom have more rigid drafts, but they've been doing well? Team Freedom has Cure. Cure is as close to being a true flex as I think NA has, except for maybe Fan. So they can always pull stuff out that is going to be very surprising. And they put Cure on heroes he's really good at because he's really good at them, not because he has to be playing them. So when they can get Genji, they put Cure on Genji, but he doesn't have to be on Genji. He can be on Abathur. He can be on, this or this or this. Cure has a very deep hero pool of heroes he's comfortable playing, even in a competitive setting. The reason, last season when people needed a sub, they were always like, Cure, can we get Cure? Cure played, Chromie as a sub. Cure played Murden as a sub for different teams. And he was not the problem in any of those games, win or lose. So Team Freedom has a structure that they like to draft around, but it's not the same as saying that their drafts are rigid. They have a structure that they draft around, but the heroes they can slot into that structure are varied. They won't let him play Medivh, though. I mean, Medivh. You gotta practice as a team for Medivh to be good. I would say it takes probably 6 months of practice for a team to be good with Medivh. Not for the Medivh to be good, but if you already have a good Medivh, it takes 6 months of practice for a team to be good with Medivh. And then if you switch up who's playing the Medivh, things can get really wonky. Dansky is their Medivh player, so they want that. So yeah, I mean that's totally reasonable. If you switch up the Medivh, your Medivh player, you're going to be in a situation where the portals are maybe placed a little differently, or they have a little bit of understanding. Like the way and Rich plays Medivh is not the way ADRD plays Medivh. Those are very different styles of Medivh play, and they're both extremely effective. But if you just like swapped ADRD and Rich, no, that would not. It would not be the same thing at all. It would not be the same thing at all. So, better understanding of the draft and punishing rigidity and lack of hero pools in the draft is a big thing. Teams need to predict. Teams need to think about this in advance of what kind of comps they want to play and what they think is going to be good, and then they need to have a list for people. Like, these are the heroes you need to be able to play. Okay, everyone gets a list. And then everyone needs to practice those heroes in scrims and in Hero League because they need to be really good at them mechanically. And I don't think most teams do that. I'm just going to say, I don't think most teams have like really strict hero pools. They're like, oh yeah, he'll play this and he'll play this. And the teams, if I can go up to a team and ask, if this was a draft, who would play what? And they can answer like instantly, that team knows what's going on. Lower level teams, I cannot do that with. Higher level teams, I can. So, do you think the impactfulness of drafting in HOTS is a potential design issue in the pro scene? No. It's intentional. Blizzard designed the game that way on purpose. They want the draft to be impactful. As the hero pool increases in size and complexity, will it be reasonable for teams and players to keep up with things? As a full-time job, yes. For average players, no. What happens if they can't draft and remain so impactful? People will get frustrated, and people will stop playing the game. For the record, the number of people that I've seen on my friends list personally playing the game over the last few weeks has gone down dramatically. They're not introducing new players as fast as they need to, and they're losing old players because of how complicated the game is getting. I would be curious to know what Blizzard's numbers are, and if they're experiencing the same thing, or if it's just a localized phenomenon. But drafting is getting progressively harder, and when drafting starts, you have a team, you have a hero pool, you have an idea of the strategy behind the comps you're going to be drafting. People are playing less because hero league rotation is terrible. It might also be the case. What would it take for you to do a full analysis of Medivh, including the different players and playstyles? That would take days. I don't know. The research would take days. So they designed a game where draft is important but don't have hero swaps and game modes. Yeah, and it's actually worse than that. They designed the introductory game mode to not have a draft of any kind. So, and I keep saying this. I'm gonna keep saying it. Anytime this subject comes up, I'm gonna give my little spiel and we'll move on. But I'm gonna give it. Quick match needs to go. The introductory game mode for Heroes of the Storm should not be quick match. It should be a blind pick lobby where you can see the map in advance. Quick match as a game mode does not teach you anything about the game. Doesn't teach you anything about map and map specific strategies. It doesn't teach you anything about drafting. And it doesn't teach you anything about really preparation or team coordination. The introductory game mode should introduce you to all the concepts that you're going to need to play the rest of the game. Quick match introduces you to heroes mechanically, and that's it. Like, it literally, you can practice pushing the buttons on a hero. That's it. You could actually learn more almost from playing AI than you could from playing quick match. So I think AI should be switched. I think AI shouldn't be random map. I think AI should be, you pick a hero, you pick a map, and you play against AI heroes. Your team is random. The enemy team is random, your team is random. Fine. So quick match should be a lobby pops up. You can only see your team. You don't know what the enemy team is picking. You can still have mirror matches. There's no bans. But you see the map in advance, and you can lock in a hero. You can lock in a hero. And that still allows you to play any hero you want. It still allows for limited hero pools. At most, you need to own 5 heroes. Maybe have... you can do fastest fingers. You could do MMR locks. So the person with the highest... If 2 people lock the same hero, the person with the higher MMR gets to actually have that hero. And so there's a little notice. They'll get the hero. You can pick something else. Or whatever. I don't know. That would give an incentive. That would give an actual incentive to having high QM MMR or high blind pick MMR, I guess, and queuing up. And it would also give you experience with drafting. It would give you experience with picking for the map. And that experience would translate into unranked draft, and that would experience into the ease of experience for pick here go is so nice. Though it isn't though. That's the thing. A lot of people who come into HOTS from Overwatch, and you can go like you can go ask on the Overwatch subreddit or whatever. The people who come in here to play Heroes of the Storm from Overwatch because of the events, as soon as they get their shit, most of them turn around and leave because quick match is so frustrating. There was a thread on Reddit literally today, and there's a thread on Reddit basically every day. Someone complaining that they tried to bring their friends in the game and QM drove them away. Quick match is awful. And in addition to that, if you did a simple blind pick system, you could remove all the special matchmaking rules. The Varian rule, the Tyrande rule, the sub supports rule, the stealth rule. You could remove all those rules, and it would be purely players versus players. You could maybe leave in the groups versus no groups rule. You could maybe leave that in if you wanted to, but you could remove all the other rules. So blind pick would significantly improve matchmaking because you wouldn't have to worry about compositional rules, and it would significantly improve the learning experience of playing the actual game. It's a super weird mode for a game where team comp is super important. It's like you show up for a hockey up league and maybe you end up with 3 goalies. Yeah, I mean, and they're like you can always outplay, right? You can always the enemy team can always make mistakes, and then you can always do things really well. Like you could win a soccer game with 3 goalies. You could, or a hockey game with 3 goalies. You could. You just put them all in front of the net so that the puck can't get through. I don't know. But quick match is not the real game. And quick match will never be the real game. Because the real game involves knowing the map in advance. This is the part I don't get. This is the part I don't get. Blizzard has said time and time and time and time and time and time again that they want the draft to matter, which is why they make niche heroes, and they like the fact that the meta is different on different maps. Every map is different on purpose. Every map has heroes that excel on that map and are weak on other maps. And if you go look at heroes' win rates, most heroes have a broad range of win rates across different maps. Is Nubarak still the best warrior since his recent nerf? Probably, because all the other warriors have been nerfed so much over time as well. Probably. But if the map is so critical, why would any game mode where you don't know the map in advance be taken seriously? Or be educational or useful in any way? And the answer is it won't. It just won't. There is no realistic scenario where an introductory game mode that does not let you know the map in advance is anything but awful in Heroes of the Storm. Quick match needs to be removed from the game and replaced with blind pick, which is what other MOBAs do, or something else. It just... And it literally drives players away. There are some people who love quick match, and BlizzCon last year, Blizzard stated that 50% of all games in Heroes of the Storm are quick match games. That number's gone down considerably. People are starting to do, brawl more, customs, if they want a casual, like, whatever experience. But if they want to play the real game, they're doing Unranked Draft, they're doing Team League, they're doing Hero League. And they're frustrated with those modes because a lot of the people they run into are quick match players who have no idea what they're doing because quick match is so bad. The game needs to educate you about ways to play the game. And if it doesn't do that, then you're going to be in trouble. Is Butler not in channel? I guess Butler's not in channel. %100% of all mines be asthma versus asthma? I don't think that's true. I would never draft asthma on mines. Now that I think about it, Overwatch is basically blind pick. Ah, fancy that. But that wouldn't be a bad thing, because that's the way it would be if you queue for unranked draft. Those are the heroes that are going to be most contested when you run into a map. It would just happen in the introductory game mode where people were learning how to play the game. Right? It would be better. It would be better. My little rant. Also, another one of the reasons that we've had a lot of upsets in terms of games is actually late game throws. There's been a lot of late game throws, particularly in NA, where go watch the series that were not supposed to be lost in a lot of cases. Like I think all of Roll20's and all of Tempo Storm's late game losses in series they were supposed to win was actually all throws. Seems like removing quick match. I mean, some people would obviously be upset and would probably drop the game, but you gotta weigh that against the amount of people who tried the game once or 15 times for an event and then never come back because of how awful quick match is. You gotta weigh those things against each other. Yes, it would remove a portion of the player base that likes quick match. It would also open up the game to people who are gonna progress through quick match into unranked draft, into team league, into hero league, and be hardcore about the game. HOTS has a competitive future no matter what. I think they're putting enough money into it that at least some people will be interested. But I honestly think that the game is going to face long-term growing pains if quick match remains as a game mode option for the entire player base. And the competitive scene won't get better if the player base doesn't grow, because there won't be up-and-comers pushing from the bottom to force teams to improve. Most people I know who aren't just like totally sick of the game only play unranked draft with friends at this point. They don't solo queue at all in any game mode, and they'll only play unranked draft in groups or customs, which is 5v5. I play with a bunch of high-level players, and they always default to QM to practice new heroes, so it's the easiest way to level them. Is there a QM mode in all Dota? Yes. Blind pick. Their version of it, where you get to just like go into a lobby and pick a hero, is blind pick. That allows mirrors. That's what other MOBAs do. I'm encouraging something that other MOBAs already do very successfully. It's not like an original idea. Not even my idea. But I was like, quick match is awful. What do other MOBAs do? I went and looked at what other MOBAs did. I was like, what other MOBAs do is better. Let's do that. I wonder if Blizzard doesn't want to give up their Street Fighter style menu with character portraits. I don't know. You never know why Blizzard does the things they do, because some of the, like all the things they do don't make sense, and then they do an AMA or something. They bust the reason. Like that reason doesn't really make sense. But it's it's one of those things where when you're working internally with a fixed group of people, sometimes weird ideas just become like stuck in the group's mindset. Just the way it is. Answer this question. Looking forward to the show? Me too. When's Cavalier Gas going to start competing with a professional team? If so, which team would he play in? I will never start competing with a professional team. I'm going to be honest, guys. I love Heroes of the Storm, and it's fun to play, but I could not play Heroes of the Storm for a 6 to 8 hour scrim block and then go grind 6 additional hours of Hero League just to practice mechanics. I would not enjoy that. That would not make me happy. One of the reasons that I stream at all is because I find it fun. And I'm not making any money on it, so I must find it interesting, because I wouldn't be doing it otherwise. I mean, I'm making a little bit of money with the subs and the donations now, but for like a year and a half, I made literally $0 streaming. So, yeah. I may get hired as a coach for a team, but I will never even attempt to be a professional player. That's just never going to happen. It's a funny question. League has been trying to transition the default on competitive to a draft system with pre-assigned roles. I don't think that would work as specifically in Heroes. Given we're talking about what other games do for queues, what are your thoughts on the role queue in LoL? You choose to play top and then it finds you for other people. That would never work in HOTS. Yeah, that would never work in HOTS. Have I talked about the No Tomorrow core crawls? I have not. No one asked about them. Where does No Tomorrow stand as a team currently? They beat both Tempo Storm and Team Freedom. Tempo Storm through, though. Team Freedom also through. But Tempo was in a slump, and Team Freedom didn't seem to have the draft figured out yet. Both teams went Game 5 as well. They lost even investment. Their earlier successes have been largely the weaknesses of their opponents rather than their own strength. That's true. Is there any merit to this logic? No Tomorrow is probably... It's in the bottom 2. No Tomorrow is in the bottom 2 for NA. No question in my mind about that. The games that they won were throws by their opponents. It was nothing they did except for not losing, which is important. Honestly, giving your enemy room to hang himself can be a viable strategy for a worse team to win. Just keep baiting them and overextending and hope something happens. Team Freedom really impressed me in their series versus Roll20. Where do you think they stand and how do you think they will fare versus Tempo? I think Team Freedom will do really well versus Tempo, but Tempo might have patched some of their mistakes. Because they have just it's just 1 or 2 glaring mistakes that if they fix them, they'd be fine. They just play the game on a too intellectual level. They never push advantages enough. In regards to Roll20, were they better off with Yoda in your opinion? They were better off with Yoda because their hero pools were better. They're basically experiencing growing pains trying to figure out drafting and then figure out hero pools. And they're probably not doing it in a concrete order. They're probably not like, okay, these are the comps we're going to run. So these are the hero pools. And then handing out lists. They're probably not doing that. And again, I think it's something all teams should do. And yeah. FYI, Nasmus had a broken finger during their set versus No Tomorrow and they couldn't play many heroes. That sucks. That actually sucks. I didn't know that, Nasmus. That sucks. That actually explains a lot. It'd be nice if players had a language to use to describe what sort of comp they want to play so you could coordinate with teams in ranked. Like, let's play a poke comp or heavy dive comp, and then people would know how many bruisers, rangers, etc. you need. Yeah, that'd be good. There are drafting guides out there that help people with that, but the problem is not everyone reads them. You don't think any shot calling is significantly better? It's the best in any shot calling. We actually talked about No Tomorrow earlier, and specifically their game versus Even in Death. And actually, Even in Death shot calling improved dramatically. No Tomorrow shot calling is better than it was, but since it was the worst in NA before, saying it's gotten better is not like a huge jump. No Tomorrow, is just has a lot of problems as a team. What are the standings anyway? We actually go look. So Tomorrow is 4th right now, ahead of Roll20 Esports. I mean, obviously they're not. They were though, right? And No Tomorrow was bottom 2 in NA. Currently they're number 4 by the actual rankings. I think Roll20 is a better team though. They're just doing worse because they have problems that they have not addressed. Actually, I take that back. Even in Death and Deventic are worse. They're bottom 3. Maybe bottom 4. I forgot how much worse Superstars is without Faye. I guess we'll find out on Friday, because Roll20 versus No Tomorrow's on Friday, right? I don't know. No Tomorrow shot calling improved, but it was, last season, it was some of the worst shot calling in NA. So, I don't know. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, about how, as a region, NA got worse with the roster swaps and B-Step breaking up. Because on average, the players in NA HGC are now worse than they were last season. Some teams got the better end of that change. No Tomorrow getting Equinox is like a huge deal. Equinox is a really, really good shot caller. But sometimes I think the rest of No Tomorrow isn't good enough to follow Equinox's shot calling. If that makes sense. And that leads to like awkward calls sometimes. Where you know the right call, you say the right call, and your team just can't quite like manage it. I don't know, that'll be an interesting matchup. I've always been a fan of Equinox as a player, for the record. I really respect Equinox. I criticized him as tank when he was playing for GFE because he's not great at tanking, and he actually is okay at tanking on some tanks, but only tanks he enjoys playing. He's a really... He focuses better when he's having fun. So when he's focused, he's one of the best players in NA. But in order for him to be focused, he has to be playing a hero he actually enjoys playing. So if he's playing Tracer, he shows up 100% of the time. If he's playing a hero like EDC, he's like... And it's not. So yeah. I don't know. No Tomorrow's been... Here's the thing about No Tomorrow. They've been consistently improving, and a lot of other teams in NA have been struggling. So No Tomorrow may be top 3. Maybe it happens. I think Team Freedom and Gale Force Esports are definitely 1 and 2 right now. But No Tomorrow may pull out the top 3 at some point. Maybe they'll make that happen. I don't think there's any way they're gonna make it happen in this phase. But they are doing work. Superstars, I don't know. I don't approve of role swaps. I don't know how many times I can say that. It's something we've talked about on HGC a lot. I don't approve of role swaps. People should be in roles that they're good at, and then they should stick to those roles. And you should only role swap if the draft calls for it in such a way that you have multiple things. So like if you have a tank player, they should always be on a tank. And then if you have triple tank, then suddenly, well, someone's going to have to swap to something else. But your tank player should still be on a tank. It really is important for consistency of execution that the same people are playing the same things. Every single time we've seen role swaps in professional teams and Heroes of the Storm, it's made the team worse. At least for a little bit. Sometimes permanently. Sometimes it actually killed rosters. They just could never get past it, and they ended up breaking up rather than reverting. So... This is one of the dangers of doing a live show, by the way, because that No Tomorrow question was asked for me, and I was thinking about them last season before the Equinox swap, and I shouldn't have said that. So who asked that question? I'm actually going to apologize. Dangers of live shows. Couchy. I apologize for giving an incorrect initial answer. What about Casanova? I mean, Casanova... For some reason, a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Casanova. They either I don't know what this is. I don't feel that strongly about him, but a lot of people love Casanova and a lot of people hate Casanova. I don't know why. My sole interaction with Casanova was I saw him streaming that he was leveling a Korean account, and I went and played with him on my Korean account to help him level some quick match heroes. That's it. That's the only interaction I've ever had with Casanova. And he was perfectly pleasant, and it was fun. A lot of people say he's overrated. A lot of people say he's underrated. He seems like an average professional player for NA. Like, he's not God's gift to Heroes of the Storm. He's not literal trash. He's actually an average for a professional player in NA. That's it. He's totally reasonable. Can you help us understand why Prismat picked Pyroblast as KT twice, I think? It was a Tracer counter because it deals with... At least one of the games it was a Tracer counter. Because it gives you something to do after the recall, or it gives you a way of forcing the recall. I don't agree with this, but I'm pretty sure that was the logic. But basically, if you have a highly vulnerable target that has one specific cooldown, You can often force them to back off in team fights or kill them after that cooldown if they're exceptionally fragile, but it's gimmicky. There's really no other word for it. It's just gimmicky. It's the kind of thing you would do if you weren't confident you could beat them in a straight-up fight, which maybe they are. Maybe Roll20 is not confident right now. Is TS and Roll20 playing bad as HGC? It's both. Tempo Storm and Roll20 are both having issues. But, yeah. I was tracing Genji, because if you track to flex cooldown, you can also do it. Can you give a personal rankings of the NHC? Currently, I would put Team Freedom at the top, purely for consistency. I would put Gale Force Esports second. You claim Stray followed face build? Well, we're talking about Prismat. Prismat took Pyroblast. I may put No Tomorrow over Tempo Storm. I don't know. Equinox is Equinox is having that big an impact. So I'll put No Tomorrow, Tempo Storm, Roll20, Superstars, Even in Death, and Aventic. I definitely think Aventic is the worst team in NA. It's really just Tempo Storm, No Tomorrow, Roll20, and Superstars. Well, actually, no, Superstars is definitely bottom 3. So it's Tempo Storm, No Tomorrow, and Roll20 that, in my mind, are basically fighting it out for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Are you saying No Tomorrow, Roll20? Yes, right now. Like, right today, put a gun to my head, No Tomorrow. I think on Friday, that will probably go to a Game 5. But you got to remember that Roll20's problems at the moment are all centered around hero pools and drafting. Those are probably problems that if you sat down and had a spreadsheet, you could solve in like a few hours. If they do that, then they'll be better. If they don't do that, then they'll be worse. Will Roll20 do that? And we'll find out on Friday. I'll be shocked if No Tomorrow beats Roll20. Well, if No Tomorrow beats Roll20, everyone remember that I said it was a real possibility. I would put it 60-40 in No Tomorrow's favor, like right now. It's still technically close, but slight edge. Slight edge. I definitely think if No Tomorrow wins game 1, they can go win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, and take it 3-2. So a lot's going to be going on that first game. Do you have any thoughts about why Niventic keeps having so much trouble? They don't macro. That's really what it comes down to. Niventic has been a team that has always depended on winning team fights to win. And team fighting is actually the second thing you should learn in Heroes of the Storm. Macro is the first thing you should learn. You can literally win a game purely by macro with no team fighting. You can't win a game with no team fighting, with all team fighting and no macro. You need to at some point like do something. Where do you think Nomi would place in NAHGC? Top 4. Right now, I think Nomia could beat Tempo Storm. I don't think they could easily beat Freedom or Gale Force, so they would be top 3. Also, I don't think Niventic is on. Niventic just like doesn't understand the game. And for a while, they were carried by mechanical skill of their players. But eventually, other people actually learned the game and they didn't. And that has made literally all the difference. Like, literally all the difference. Right now, I would actually be embarrassed if I was a professional team in NA and I lost a game to Niventic. Like, any game. Do you think Freedom or GFE could be top 5 in EU or Korea? Nope. Oh, maybe Korea. Maybe Korea. Korea is not doing well at the moment. I mean, even pre-midseason brawl, Korea basically had 3, arguably 4 really good teams, and the rest of their teams were like, eh. So, but then they lost arguably the best shot caller in the world when he's on point and motivated. They lost one of the best support players in the world. You know, and that shuffled up their rosters a little bit. But Korea, on average, is weaker now than it was before. So GFE or Freedom could probably be top 5 in Korea. They could not be top 5 in EU right now. No. By extension, I'm saying that the Western clash is going to be very one-sided in EU's favor. I would be surprised if an NA team took a set off an EU team. Like, just a set. I would be surprised. Maybe a game, but not a set. That is all the questions from the Reddit thread, incidentally. Thank you guys for posting those. Hopefully everyone was satisfied with the answers. Team Freedom will, I believe. I mean, Team Freedom, I mean, they can't. I'm not saying it's impossible. I would just be surprised if it happened. But there's always an element of metas meeting and one meta being better. So it's possible that if Team Freedom has a really good understanding of the game, as it seems they do. You want me to discuss the EU standings? Really nice about playing Ducks over on EU? They're not doing well. That's really all you can say about that. Playing Ducks is not doing well. They had a roster swap, didn't they? I think he's the right team. Let me go check their player history. So yeah, they got rid of Chris Explosion. For the record, I cast Playing Ducks Qualifier. And when I cast Playing Ducks Qualifier for them to get into HGC in the first place, Chris Explosion was the most impressive player, in my opinion, that I saw in that set. And now he's not on the team anymore. So, in my mind, they lost one of their best players, at least mechanically. Apparently, I mean, obviously there were issues or they wouldn't have removed him. But... and I definitely think his pool of... what did he play? Tanks. His pool of tanks was a little bit like, eh. He wasn't necessarily good at every tank that was in the meta. And maybe if he wasn't learning them or didn't want to practice them, maybe that's why they replaced him. He was really good at EDC though. He couldn't have two Chris's on one team to have shot call. There's a funny story about Superstars actually dying to a boss stomp because of the similarity of Faye and Srey. Chris is hard to play with. I mean, attitude and comms it matters a lot. The swap also meant that they had to swap comms from German to English. That's a big deal. So now their comms are in a language that they're not 100% comfortable talking in. Like, it's just... whenever teams make huge changes like that, you should expect a drop-off in performance. Obviously, in this case, the drop-off has been massive because they are 1 win to 5 losses in sets. But... it would have been weird if anything else had happened, to be honest. You gotta respect the fact that they made that decision to change because they wanted to get better and it ended up making them worse. But Fnatic is the best team by far in EU right now. I would put Expert second, just because I haven't been impressed with Dignitas since their drafter and shot caller swap. I think Dignitas is still better than Tricked. I think Tricked is doing better than Liquid. So for me, it goes Fnatic, Expert, Dignitas, Tricked, Liquid, Zealots, Team Good Guys, Playing Ducks. That's my order. Calm's not that big since it's just basic English. I mean, it depends on your calms. Also, There's a cognitive processing level. If you're a native fluent speaker of a language, you don't actually have to think. You hear something and you understand it. You're pretty much just good. If you have a secondary language that you're not like 100% on, it can be a 2 to 3 seconds of cognitive lag time before you understand what was said, if it's not something that's like really simple. And even if it's something that's really simple, like it takes a couple weeks at least of consistent practice. If they're only talking in English during scrims, and that's only, a few hours a day, it may take them weeks to adjust. And if they're trying to do strategy, or if they're occasionally slipping back into German in stressful situations, and so Ethernal's like, I don't know what's going on, that's a problem. We don't know that. We would have to listen to their comms. And we would have to not only listen to comms, but watch the players and be like, okay, now he moves, right? So you could track the lag time. For all we know, though, their cognitive lag time from calling comms in English is actually like 2 seconds. And we were talking earlier about how 2 seconds is a world of difference between the right call and not being fast enough to make the right call in this game. So this weekend, Dig beats Trick and Expert beats Liquid. Is that what you think? Yes. Those would be my predictions. Eternal kind of speaks gamer, but also... I mean, it depends. If that's really not a problem, if they really are having 0 comm problems, and they're still 1-5, because they're not exactly playing badly, then what's the problem? Because they're playing fine, they're drafting fine for the most part. I mean, every team has bad drafts, but what's the problem? Chris said they have great results in scrims, but don't show up in HGC games. Well, that's weird. If they're doing well in scrims, but then not performing on stage, then... like, that's a huge problem. Then you're talking about, like, performance anxiety, or maybe they're in a bad headspace. Like, maybe they lost, and when there's no pressure, they started losing, and then there's no pressure on, they're fine. But as soon as the pressure comes back, they go back into a losing mindset, and it actually affects their play. It would actually be really interesting to compare a scrim game on a map with a comp versus a game in HGC with the same comp on the same map. Not necessarily against the same team, but I don't know. If it's not that, if comms aren't the problem at all, then Nande not being a good tank has to be like the number one. That has to be it. Because it is a really hard role to learn. It's a hard role to adjust to. I don't want to put all the blame on Nande, though, because I feel like he's not doing that badly. But it's a team-focused game. Teams are often only as strong as their weakest link. So... Wolf show's only good on Ario. I mean, it's new roles, new language, literally. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of things to adjust to. And it may not be only one thing. It could be lots of little things. It could be this issue and this issue and this issue. One of the things, we talked about this last week. I'm going to just go over it again. Intentional practice is really important. If you're doing badly at one thing as a team, if you're doing badly as a team, it's probably multiple things you're having problems with, but you can't practice everything at once. Your objective should be to go into a game and practice just one thing. And the example that I used was there was a League of Legends team that was having a really hard time with team fight coordination and positioning and comms and calling out cooldowns. And their coach actually made them play ARAM in League of Legends. And they were practicing just this calm, they were practicing coordination with comms in team fights, because if you're all random all mid, you're always fighting as 5v5, right? They're practicing just that thing. Playing Ducks may well be in a situation where they have 6 minor problems, and they all add up to one big problem that's just keeping them from winning. They need to identify each of those minor problems and find a way to practice on just that minor problem at a time. So this problem, and then this problem, and this problem. And just practice these things one at a time to deal with them. That seems more likely than Nande being like a weak link to me. But again, they haven't been... I've been watching their games. They haven't been playing badly. It's just like they're just a little bit worse. They're not like a lot worse in most cases. There have been some... Every team has bad drafts. Every team. So we saw Tron this week. Tron is actually probably pretty good in Hero League right now, honestly. Tron's like a really good 1v1er since her rework, which makes her really good in Clown Fiesta situations that you often experience in Hero League. Where would they see it in NA? I don't know. Apparently they beat Roll20 during their scrim block. Like, consistently beat Roll20 during their scrim block when Roll20 was over there for mid-season brawl. And now they're bottom EU. So, Playing Ducks would probably be a mid-tier team in NA. If the relative jumps are the same. Right? If you assume they would still beat Roll20, despite the fact that they've gotten worse, they would be a mid-tier NA team. Yes, we saw Toronto this week. What do I think is the most impactful role in Hero League? I don't like that question because it implies that you can play every hero. The highest impact you personally or any player is going to have in Hero League is if they're on their best hero, regardless of what that is. If you're good at tanking and you're on your best tank, you're gonna have a high impact, regardless of even if that tank is Johanna. Right? You're gonna have a high impact. I've always felt this was true, and if you go look, like 25% of Grandmaster players every single season are one-tricks. They literally will have like an 80% win rate on one hero and a 20% win rate on every other hero they play. But because they play that one hero the majority of their games, they get into Grandmaster. There's a Vala player in Korea GM who gets GM every season playing 80% Vala with an 80% win rate. He's good at Vala. They actually made a video about him. He's the guy who does the Caltrops Death Dealer build for the resets on Vault. That's him. Yeah. So he showed up on Reddit like not too long ago, maybe a few months. And this has been proven. Ghostdunk, who maybe he's still hanging out in chat, did an analysis that basically concluded that the higher level you are on a hero, the higher your effective MMR is that hero. So if you're a level 1 on a hero, your effective MMR is actually a lot lower. And Blizzard actually respected the work he did so much that they implemented a matchmaking rule where if you're low level on a hero, your effective MMR gets dropped for your matchmaking, and you play with other people that are, worse than your normal MMR, but they're roughly where you are on that hero, because playing a hero you're not familiar with is actually really bad. It actually significantly impacts your effectiveness. There's also that player one-trick in NA, I forget the name. Yeah, I mean, Ali was a one-trick Nova. Everyone knows that there's one-tricks in NA if you watch any sort of streams. It's only for quick match MMR that the rule applies to, but the analysis Ghostdunk did was on Hero League MMR, and he correlated win rates, hero levels, and effective MMR, and like Blizzard can't make a rule like that for Hero League, but they made a rule like that for quick match. If they could make a rule like that for Hero League and somehow like magically anticipate the draft, Hero League might be better. But yeah, the hero you're going to have the most success with is the hero that you are the best at, and it might not be the optimal pick. And this wasn't even professional play. There was a game when Falstead was the be-all, end-all of ranged heroes sometime last year in Korea. There was a game where Tempest versus MVP Black, they picked Vala and the post-game interview, everyone was like, why the hell did you pick Vala? And they were like, well, he doesn't know how to play Falstead yet. And everyone was like, what? And they were like, yeah, Lockdown has not learned to play Falstad yet. Bear in mind, Lockdown 3 months later was considered one of the best Falstad players in the world. It's not like he couldn't play Falstad. He just hadn't played Falstad yet. He hadn't picked it up. So they picked Vala because he knew how to play Vala. He was good at Vala. And they ended up winning that series. But this is one of the reasons that I emphasized, again, professional teams need to have a list of heroes that they're expected to know how to play so they can build their drafts the way they need to and know that people can play that. But if you're not a professional player, the best thing you can do is have a very small roster of heroes. If it's a hero you can guarantee that you always get, like, one, then if you one-trick a hero, you're going to rank up one-tricking a hero. If that's not fun for you, then just try and limit your roster. Assuming all factors are equal, assuming everyone on your team is equally good at their hero, assuming everyone on your team is equally good at the game, assuming everyone on your team actually belongs in that game, there's no one person who's just smurfing or super, super high MMR or whatever. The most impactful role in Hero League is whichever hero has wave clear. It's not a roll, it's just wave clear. You can make an argument on maps like Braxis and Dragonshire that the most impactful hero, singular, is the solo laner, because they can basically win a third to a half of the game, depending on the map, for their team by themselves. If you're winning the solo lane on Braxis, you're literally winning 50% of the game. I've actually not lost a game on Braxis where I was in the solo lane. Because I study solo lane matchups so extensively that if I'm in a draft environment, I look at their solo laners and I'm like, well, if I pick this, I know I can win the solo lane no matter what. It's only when I'm not in the solo lane that I have problems on certain maps. So you can make that argument. You can make the argument that on maps where the solo lane is really, really critical, understanding who wins what matchups and then drafting to win the matchup can be really, really important. But for the most part, every role in Heroes of the Storm matters. It's a team-focused game. To win the solo lane, you have to make it so that person can't soak, though. Well, you can also just win the objective or out-siege them. If I'm killing your fort as Zagara, and we've both gotten every single wave's worth of experience, but your fort's dead and mine's at full ammo, I'm winning that lane, right? I won. Your fort's dead, mine's not. If you don't miss any soak but die 3 times, I'm still technically 3 kills ahead, which isn't a lot of experience, but it's some. Yeah, in order to, the ways you win the solo lane, you can win the objective but tie the lane. You can... When will you be doing Going Alone with Mathiel? So Blizzard was not uploading replays. So I had a personal issue last week. I had to put my cat down, unfortunately, on Wednesday morning. So last week's Going Alone got skipped, and Blizzard had not been uploading replays quickly, and then the guy who runs Master was on vacation, so he wasn't putting them up on the games. I will be doing a Going Alone with Mathiel tomorrow if people are interested. I can actually look right now. I know Mathiel's had a few solo lane matchups that I think were played well enough to analyze. Yeah, see, Korea's still not up yet, which is a shame because there was one from Korea in particular that I really wanted to talk about. Maybe it will be up. I think it is up. I think I'll be able to do it. So we'll do Going Alone with Mathiel tomorrow. We'll probably go over 2 or 3 of his different laning matchups. I'm glad people like Going Alone. It's one of my favorite shows to do. So hope everyone has missed it as much as I have. I think that's it for the day, though, guys. We've been streaming for... It's not the right window. We've been streaming for 2 hours, just about. Offhand, do you think he wins the solo lane against Lurk? A lot of Mathiel's solo lanes are skill matchups, because you have to have a certain amount of damage, you have to have a trait. He shouldn't win against basically any ranged hero, but he should theoretically be able to tie or win against any melee hero. But it's really difficult in some cases. I think Leoric should be able to win it, but it's just going to be rough. And I'm happier, honestly, when heroes like that exist. It becomes an intellectual puzzle when heroes guaranteed to win the lane if they don't play badly. But it's more interesting when there's a skill-based matchup, and therefore you can draft someone like, well, they could win, but they could lose. You think Ariel's not that good for HL? She's really dependent on your carry being good. I do not play Ariel in HL. I'm just going to say that. I don't play Ariel is literally my favorite support to play. I do not play Ariel in HL. I have not played Ariel in HL since they removed Duo Q from HL. Ariel forces a certain playstyle that is very aggressive, and most players justifiably are used to a passive playstyle on fragile backline DPS heroes because they're used to dying if they don't play passively. But you have to play aggressively as an Ariel comp, or you're not giving Ariel energy. So yeah, I would not play Ariel in HL. Best supports in HL are probably Rhaegar and Malfurion because they can do things on their own, but they're also just good at helping a team do things well. And they both have potentially wave clear talents at level 1. Bursting Light's a problematic talent, isn't it? Not really. Bursting Light's a good talent. Better than Uther. For the purposes of Hero League, I would say Rhaegar and Malf are better than Uther. Maybe not better than Stukov. Stukov's pretty good at doing things on his own. Oh, it's not like his wave clear is amazing. I guess it's not bad. I don't know. So far, I've seen a lot of overextending Stukovs. They're like, yeah, I have a lot of auto attack damage, and they just walk into the enemy team and they die. And I'm like, don't have an escape. A lot of auto attack damage, no escape. Forgot about that part. She's like all in on her carry and completely useless on BB, but with that she can't heal out. Yeah, like if you play Ariel, you are betting that someone else on your team is going to play not only really well, but correctly for what you need them to do. And then you're also betting that your tank is going to protect the person when they're playing like that. And that's essentially two people who have to be doing their job like really well. Whereas if you play Rhaegar, you really don't have to think about yourself and then Ancestral the right person. Like, it's not super, super, super complicated to do well with a Rhaegar in Hero League, where it is a little bit more complicated to do well with an Ariel. One of the reasons that Ariel is so good in competitive play is because she does require a certain level of coordination. But if you get that coordination, she's arguably one of, like, top 3 strongest supports in the game. I would even make an argument that, and she's probably the best, one of the best supports for, at least one of the best supports for double support. Energized Cord is really good, but 4 seconds on her healers and something. I think all her 7s are like viable, but they involve weird comps. For instance, when Expert ran triple support on Battlefield of Eternity, Bursting Light was still taken. Their battery was Lily. Lily actually can't do enough damage to give Ariel full hope in a 2-second period. So Bursting Light got 0 value that game. It would have been better if they'd gone for a different level 7 talent in that situation. Also, in a lot of cases in Hero League, people can't give you full hope in 2 seconds because they don't optimize their cooldown usage for it, or they just miss their skill shots, which is obviously a problem. Ruhad, thank you for the follow. So the other level 7s become viable in wonky drafts where you're going like triple support, and they become viable in situations where your team is bad. But if you're drafting Ariel as a sole support with a good battery, then Bursting Light should always be taken. And it's fine to have like a standard build and niche situational talents. I think that's fine. I don't think that's a design problem. I mean, even if you don't have full hope, the heal can be enough to save someone. No, it can be. But in triple support, do you really need to reduce your heal from 4 seconds to 2 seconds? Do you really? Do you? Do you? I'd never take anything other than Bursting Light. If you can't take it, don't draft Ariel. I mean, I'm saying there's specific, like, really odd scenarios, like triple support. And bear in mind, their comp was like, what? Lily, Ariel, Sonya, Arthas. What was their third support? I can probably just, you know, I can probably just click on Lily, and it's going to be like the last game played in a competitive expert, where are you? Here it is. It's Mouth. Mouth was the third one. So yeah, you're like 2 seconds is not going to make the difference there. It's just not. So that's a situation where a different level 7 was probably a better choice. But it's a pretty niche example. Alright, if there's no other random questions, I am going to call it a day. We'll definitely be back tomorrow with Malfield's going alone. I'm going to work on that. I'm also going to try and get caught up on the articles. I've had a very rough couple of weeks in my personal life. The cat was not the only thing. It was just in many ways the most devastating thing. So... But thank you all for watching. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Again, there is a questions thread posted on Reddit. This week I posted it on a Monday because I kind of got tired. Also, I said I'd experiment with it. Monday seemed to be better. It got more upvotes. It got more views. So I think from now on, the question thread will be posted on Monday. So if you have questions throughout the week or the weekend of HGC, try and remember them or maybe write them down. I don't know. And then post them on Monday on the question thread. You will get a detailed answer on Tuesday. And you can always swing by the stream and ask a question, but since I won't have done any pre-analysis of the question, it may not be as in-depth as you would have preferred. So thank you all for watching, and remember, this is streamer, we never lose, we always win, we learn something. Learning is always a win. Have a good day, everyone.